Hey YouTube, in my last couple of videos we discussed how to quickly sketch a graph of a linear equation from its equation, actually, and in this video we're going to talk about how we can find the equation from, say, the graph, or at least given information about the graph, okay? And so what I've done here, I've kind of outlined one way, I don't want to say this is the only way, but one way to write the equation of a line. And so before I appeal to the steps, I just want to point one thing out before we leave this video, but basically this. Lines, recall, are very, very boring functions. They are very predictable. So for instance, this line here, if I wanted to write its equation, it occurs to me that I would only really need to know two things about it. The first thing I'd need to know is like how steep it is, okay? And when we talk about steepness, of course, we're measuring slope. So for instance here, I could say, well, I know this point on my graph looks like here, and I've got a point here. So as long as I can find 2 points, I can find its rise over its rim. So I would need to know the slope. The other thing I'm going to need to know is just at least a point on this graph. Think about it. If I had this point right here and I went up 2 over 1, up 2 over 1, up 2 over 1, I'd find tons of points. But if I had just one of those and a slope, then I could walk in a given direction. So we say as long as I have some point x, y, and its slope, then I can write the equation. So finding the slope of the line, I guess, is kind of an important thing. If you want to write the equation, you're going to need to know it, okay? So notice here that I write A. If the slope is given, then life is good. And actually, life is good. We need the slope of this line. But I say if 2 or more points on the line are given, we need to use the formula for slope to determine the slope of the line. Recall that basically what this means is if I'm given 2 points, x1, y1, and x2, y2, then I could say the slope between these 2 points is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, or this is rise over run. Okay? Could be fall over run, but basically rise over run. So we could find the slope using this formula. Step 2 is going to be this: find a point on the line. And you notice here that it says it doesn't matter which point is used, therefore it's often best judgment to choose a point that has convenient coordinates when available. So let's go ahead and try this, before we go through steps 3 and 4, let's try the first two on example number 1. So it says write the equation of the line that's shown here. It says, first of all, is the slope given? Now, we could use the slope formula here. We notice that we have a point 1, 0, and that we have a point, 0, negative 2. And if we were to use the slope formula here, it looks like we would get this. We'd say y2 minus y1. So on top we get 0 minus, and we say on the basement here, y1 here, we say negative 2. And then we say, okay, so x2, which is 1, minus x1, which is 0. And so we get this, we get 0 plus a positive 2, which is 2, over 1 minus 0, which is 1. So we get a slope of 2. And of course, we could have just looked at this and said it rises 2, runs 1. So, another way to have judged the slope here is say 2 over 1. Okay, it's entirely up to you. But we say we have the slope here. The only other thing that I'm going to need to write the equation of this line is some point on this line. I notice that I labeled 2 of them here, and I think convenience sake I would go with 1, 0, only because it has both positives. So now we have this. We have the slope is 2 over 1, or 2. We're going to put a box around this. And we say the other thing I needed was some point on the line. We say some point x, y, where in this case xy is equal to 1, 0. We could have used any point on this line, but we say I've got it. Okay. So now that I have this, now let's go take a look at steps 3 and 4 here. It says substitute the values of the point xy and the value of m into the equation y equals mx plus b, and then solve for b. So the one thing I want to notice here is this. If our whole goal is to write the equation, then what we need to know are what are m and b. In this case, the good news is we've already discovered m. We could actually just go put this in right there. But the other thing is this. I need to know b. In this case, we actually know b. b is negative 2. We'll come back to that. Let's say I didn't know b. But basically, the idea is if I wanted to find b, well, I have m. I have some x. I have some y, and if I wanted to find b, what I could do is I could go substitute in all of these values. That is, we know that m is 2, x in this case is 1, and y is 0. I'm getting all this from right there. So if I go plug these in, here's what it looks like. We say, let's take out y equals m and x, and we say we'll just leave behind the b. In this case, I'd say for y, we have a y value of 0. We have an x value of 1. So those went in their spots, respectively. We say y and x here, and we say m. M in this case is 2. We were able to determine that over here. So we get this. We get 0 equals 2 times 1 plus b. In other words, in this case, we get negative 2 equals b. Now, I could have looked at the picture and told you that, yes, you would have gotten a slope of, or an intercept of negative 2. But we say, now I know b. So in this case, I know m is 2, and I know b is negative 2. I'm going to put a big box around these. And the reason why is because when I look at step 4, it says once both m and b are known, then we can substitute them into the equation y equals mx plus b, leaving x and y general. So it's essentially, if I know m and b and somebody says go write the equation, here's all I need to do. I need to go fill in these two values, m and b. And in this case here, we could say that the m was 2 and then our b was -2. So we could say this way, or we could write 2x minus 2. But this is easy to see that this is obviously the graph because we had a y-intercept of -2 and we went up 2 over 1. So these last two, really quickly here, let's try these out. It looks like it says write the equation of a line that passes through the point 1, 4 with a slope of -2. What I want to point out here is this. This is kind of the quick one we're going to do. I have a point x, y, and I have a slope m. So if I want to find its equation, we have y equals mx plus b. We could just go substitute in everything we know and solve for the one thing we don't know, which is b. We say y is 4, m is 1, or sorry, x is 1, and m is -2. So in this case, we get 4 equals -2 plus b. So this implies that b must be 6. So if b is 6, then we could say, well, then the equation of this line is y equals mx plus b, where our m, we said m is -2, and we say b is 6. So this is y equals -2x plus 6. Okay, so this last one here says write the equation of the line that passes through this point. We have some x, some y, and some m. And we'll see how this one looks a little bit different, but then I want to talk about its graph. So we say again, we say y equals mx plus b. This is our slope-intercept form. Let's take out our y, m, and x since we know those in this instance. We say we have some point here where our y value is 4 and our x value is -3. Get that from over here. And we say the slope is 2/3. So now we have a fraction. This is okay. We're going to have things cross-cancel here, but we get 4. Notice that our 3's cross-cancel. I get left with -1 up here. So we get -2 plus b. So again, I get b is 6 in this one. And we say slope is equal to 2/3. So the equation here would, of course, be this. We say 2/3 x minus 6, or actually plus 6 because we found a positive 6 here. But we say this is our equation. But again, if we would have done what we should have done, which is actually always a good idea, is sketch a picture of the situation first. I was just trying to go quickly here. And we say I have a slope of 2/3. It means from this spot, which is -3, 4, I'd say, okay, well, I could have gone up to 1, 2, up to 6, and then over, 3, and I would have landed here. And I think I know this point here. This would have to be 0, 6. Okay, so now I didn't have to make a table. I didn't have to do any of that. But basically, I could tell you this. B, it was 6. We just verified it with the graph. So if I could say slope and intercept from the graph, great. Otherwise, let's find a point on the graph. Let's find the slope, and then we'll do our substitution method. Cheers.